Good morning, and welcome back to the Soul Tree Diaries. My name is Martine Shelley, and today we're diving into chapter 5 of the 3D Diaries series, and this chapter is called The Motherlines. This chapter is a really special chapter in my soul. It's where all of my work began many, many years ago. But I actually recorded this chapter yesterday. And once I'd sat back and reviewed it, I realised that actually there was 2 chapters worth of information in the one chapter. So I have thinned it out, pared it down, stripped it back to the motherline essence, so that today that's what hopefully you'll come away with, is a clear understanding of the essence of this motherline that we are all living within. Because last week we began diving into that oogenesis, that infinite portal mirror that runs back throughout all of time, through all of our motherlines, that egg, ovary, womb, portal of life, recurring, revolving mirror that goes back through all of our motherlines, throughout the whole of your family line. And so we were discussing that. If you haven't seen last week's, then feel free to jump back in and watch that. But we discussed how the essence of us, our energy, actually arrives on Earth a lot longer before we do in terms of birthing. And I was discussing this with my friend the other day, and we have a little bit of a running joke. Our birthdays are very close to each other. And for 4 days every year, I am the far older and far wiser sister within this, even though that's not the other perspective. It's that I'm the older, cronier one. So we have this running joke every year where I get to be 4 days older for 4 days. Well, I get to be older for 4 days. But we were discussing this whole when the essence of our egg arrived on Earth, and actually, it was quite surprising because it means that I'm actually even older and wiser than my friend, than we originally thought. You see, the essence of me arrived on Earth in 1946 inside my mother, inside an egg, inside her ovary. And for my friend, it was 1960. So that makes me 14 years far more older and superior. But what fascinating concept, hey? Just the fact that we have our age on Earth from when we're born, but when we realise that the essence and energy of us has been here for an awful lot longer, and that our blueprints were created many years before we were born, it's just quite a fascinating and interesting theory to think and look and move around in your minds, I find. But the motherline subject is one that's very dear to my heart. It's one that, by the way, Jess, shoot your leg. Thank you. It's one that began for me many, many years ago when I was about 6. So I realised when I was, I found out when I was 6 years old because I was told the information that my maternal grandmother had passed away 30 years before I was born. And when I found out this information, when I learnt about this tragedy in my family's past that created a broken, fractured motherline, it came alive in my mind. And all of a sudden I could see this golden thread of the motherline and the generational family. And that's when I realised that it was important and that it meant something, because I could see the impact of my grandmother's passing 30 years before I was born, still rippling out through our family and out through our family lines. Now, I was also raised in the military. So we moved house every year and a half, 2 years. And this means that you do grow up disconnected from your wider family, your aunties, your grandparents, your grandmas are not around as close by when you grow. But I have family who have aunties and cousins and grandparents who all live close by to each other. And what I always found interesting is when we would visit them, I became aware that there was a different connection, a different relational connection between my cousins and aunties and grandparents than we had with them. Not because there was anything wrong with us, but simply the fact that they had been growing up together. They'd been raised in the same environments. They had the generational thread running down through the family homes. You could see and feel the tangible differences it makes when you are raised in a generational home. So not only was I aware of this generational break in the mother line, I was also aware I was being raised in environments away from that generational home, and I could see the differences. I could feel the tangible differences. So for me, this mother line is something that became an intrinsic part of my work, my study, my observation over the decades, because that golden thread that runs down through that mother line of the egg, the ovary, the womb, the portal of life, the babe in arms, that mother line that runs back down through our family is so important. So let's begin to look at not that mother line running back through in that infinite portal over. Let's look at that tangible mother line that we all move through as individuals through life. Let's just look at our own journey through these different transitions that we move through in life. So we're born, our first major transition of moving from being supported and held in the water to breathing in air. That's quite a huge transition for any mammal to go through. So that's our first major transition. And then when we get to, as we go through babe in arms phase, and then we go through being children in the family homes, being raised around the hearth, the fire, the warmth, the nurture, the love, the guidance of the family around us. And we reach our first transition when we become cyclical women, when we start our cycles. Now, I know in Chinese medicine, they follow within the women's cycles, they follow the number of 7, that we have this 7-year body cycle, body shift. And I believe that our skin cells are completely changed every 7 years. So we have this 7-year body shift. I'm pretty sure that when you look into numerology, we all have our own number uniquely that we sit within that cycle. So they say that there's this 7-year cycle. You get to 14 and you step into that next transition of becoming a cyclical woman. So then we become a woman who cycles, who has periods, who follows the moon throughout our whole adult life. And then we begin our next transition in life when we step in from that cyclical woman into the crone. So we have the child, the cyclical woman, and the crone. And those two transitions, the one at the start of life and the one towards the end, are not just changes that happen in us biologically, in our reproductive organs. They are whole body, biological changes that happen to us as a whole being. It's not just one part of us that starts having cycles. We become cyclical women. We have a phase of the month where we're more active, where we're more fertile, where we're more sedentary, where we're bleeding. We become a cyclical woman. And we live within this for quite a long time in life. But when we look at children at school, so if you have a child in school and they have transitioned from junior school to senior school, we know that there's a plan put in place. There's a transition plan. The children will be taken to meet their new teacher. to meet the new school. They might be given a buddy to handhold them through as they start in their new school. We know that for children, when we transition them from one environment to another, we have a plan. And this transition from child to cycling woman should also have a plan held around it entirely. A plan that brings guidance, wisdom, support, education, nurturing, care, to be held into the next phase of life of being a woman who cycles monthly. Now we'll get into the intricacies of those cycles in a later chapter. But as women, we spend a lot of our time getting to know our cycles, getting to know ourselves. And our cycles become part of who we are for such a huge chunk of our life that when we get to a point where perimenopause comes in and kicks you on the ass and goes, you just think you got your head around all that? Have some of this. Let's see how you get on here. When we go through that transition in perimenopause to menopause, there should be the same holding, the same support, the same nurture, guidance, care that is given to children in schools, that should be given to young women as they transition into their cycling phase of life. We should have a crone holding space for us as we begin the transition into the seat of crone in our families, in our generational homes. Now, as a species, as a mammal species, I believe there's 3 of us who go into menopause: the orcas and the elephants. All 3 of us mammals, we transition into non-breeding crones. And there is a huge process that goes on in our brains when we go through this transition. And the word has lost me at the minute, but I will have it in the world data when we get there. But there is a huge transition that we go through in our brains where we dump and process all of that data, information, pattern spotting, awareness, wisdom we gathered through those cycling phases. Now that we're no longer cycling, all of that wisdom that we've been gathering during those phases now has to process through our bodies. And when it does that, it brings clarity to the mind, the body, and the spirit, so that we can step into the crone phase of life with clear vision, with clear minds, with clear souls, with clear hearts. Now here's the other beautiful thing about this later transition that we go through in life, is all that energy from our nervous system that goes into our reproductive organs, that produces all the energy that keeps us in that cycle of the moon and the stars. All of that energy from our nervous system that goes into that cycle, when we reach our perimenopausal phase, that energy comes out of that area and it sends that energy back up into the heart for clear vision, for clear mind. So it's not just a medical menopause, clinical process that we go through as women when we go through these phases. So we go through our first transition of birth. Then, once we've gone through childhood, we go through our next transition into cyclical woman. And then later on in life, we go through our next transition into crone. And then there's one final transition that we go through on this earth And that's when we pass through the final portal of life and we step into the spirit mother seat. Every single one of us, regardless of the connection, the relation, the closeness, there will be a spirit mother in ether within you. That spirit mother would be guiding the crone as she sits in her seat, breathing through her on a cellular level, because let's not forget that spirit mother, our essence was made within them in that infinite portal mirror process that we're all part of in life. Every transition we go through in life should be held by elders, aunties, sisters, cousins, but so many of us go through these transitions in life alone. And when you go through such a pivotal, important transition, can you imagine the challenges it would have, the challenges there would be for a child if they were not supported during these transition phases? It would be a body shock. They would be left untethered, and they would be left running wild with the chaos in their minds. Does that resonate within you? Does that sink in? Do you feel that in your soul? That you went through some important transitions in life untethered, without the guidance and wisdom you should have to know the essence and the beauty of these cycles that we live and breathe inside. We are going to get into this in much more detail, into our cycles in much more detail on another chapter. But for today, I just want for us to see this mother line that we all go through, the transitions that we go through in life, the places where we should be held, and the seats that we sit in our own journey through life. Regardless of motherhood, we all go through birth, transition to childhood, transition into cyclical woman, transition into crone, transition into spirit mother. That is the mother line that runs through us all of us. As far back in time as you can go. I love it. I do love the mother line. It's such a beautiful subject. But let's get on to the world data. Let's see what the world says about this golden thread, this mother line, this infinite portal that runs back through all of time. Nature proves this. Humans, orcas and elephants are the only mammals to experience this long post-reproductive life. Why? Because a pod with a crone has a vastly higher survival rate or thriving rate. The crone is the one who remembers where the water is during a drought. She has the ancient maps held and stored inside her cells in her body. She has lived a whole life of breathing the earth and Mother Nature around her. She knows it within her soul. And just as in human families, in the elephants and orcas, there are many aunties who don't breed for purpose. They are the guardians. They are the ones with the clear vision. They aren't bogged down in the thick of raising young, of mothering. They are the watchers, the protectors. And for many, being the aunties is a chosen path in life. And for some, it's not a chosen path, and that comes with a whole heap of different pains and wounds inside. But if you are a woman who's stepped into an auntie role and has chosen not to step into the mother role. This has such high importance in the surviving of the mammal family that you're in. So let's just go through quickly then. Let's just look at Western medicine. In Western science, we look at the endocrine shifts. The endocrine shifts is what marks our cycles, beginning and ending. We are taught that menopause is an end, but biologically, it's a redirection. During this transition, your brain undergoes, this is the word, synaptic pruning. Synaptic pruning. The same process that happens in puberty. So when our teenage sons or sons and daughters go through their teenage years and their sleep cycles go a bit askew, same process. They need holding and supporting during this, just like we do. But look at how much wisdom and guidance and holding we're not receiving as women, because look at the online perimenopausal, menopausal space. It is booming because we're no longer being held as we transition into Crone. There's distance, there's separation. The hearth of the home has run cold. And in Chinese medicine, the womb, when this is empty and it's alone, it goes cold, and the hearth of the home goes cold. My battery's running out. Best get a wriggle on. The same process that happens during puberty. The brain clears out old noise. This old noise is all of the wisdom, the knowledge, the information, the sensing, the intuition that you've been gathering during your mothering years. Because once you can sit and process it through, you then have clear vision of it, so you can guide the next generation too. Your brain clears out old noise to make room for high-level pattern recognition. Visual thinkers sitting at the top of the family home. Somatically, the energy that once fueled your ovaries is redirected to your nervous system. In the 3D world, in the world, we call this wisdom. But in biology, it's a structural upgrade. So we briefly touched on the fact that there are many women who do not step into motherhood. And this is the evolutionary biology, the grandmother hypothesis. Data from evolutionary biology shows that humans are cooperative breeders, which means that we work together with breeding. We don't just willy-nilly all breed all the time. We cooperate in our breeding. The grandmother hypothesis proves that the presence of post-reproductive elders significantly increases the survival and thriving of the next generation. We aren't just living longer. We are biologically required by nature to sit at the top of the line so the pack doesn't lose its way or lose the heart and the hearth of the home. And Ayurveda. So let's look at Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine. In Ayurveda, they identify that the Matruja factor, the truth that our internal organs and our gut knowings are inherited specifically from our mothers. Our gut knowings and our organs are inherited specifically from our mothers. While the West sees a decline, the East calls this stage, well, the West looks at us as menopausal women going into that phase. The East calls this a second spring. That's lovely, isn't it? It's the rebirth where your yin, your essence, is no longer poured out into cycles, but instead it's sent to the hearth to fuel your own spirit. I love it. It's beautiful, isn't it? Just changing our mindset around how we look at these transitions and what it is that we're actually stepping into. So in Ayurveda, they teach us that a woman's life moves through 3 distinct energetic stages or doshas. The Kapha stage is childhood, the building phase. This is this time of structure and growth and moisture and warmth and love and nurture. This is where we are being formed by the mother line in front of us, the mothers, the grandmothers, the spirit mothers, all guiding down through that line to support the growth and the development of the child, the Kapha. The Pitta stage, this is the womanhood. This is the fire phase of life, busy on the go, moving, learning, gathering. It's productivity, creation, transformation. Our internal hearth is burning hot to sustain our cycles and our families. We recognize that as women, the fire stage of womanhood. And then the Vata stage, that's when we're cycling, the fire stage. And then the Vata stage, the Crone, this is the spirit phase. As we transition to Crone, the fire of Pitta cools. And we move into Vata, the energy of air and space. This is why we feel that more ethereal or wild or crazy transition as we move through our perimenopause into our menopause, because we're shifting from fire to air in our essence. And that's a huge shift to go through. So that's today. We're gonna round up for today. That's that for today. We've discussed and talked into this mother line that we all have within us. And you can see within yourself where you're at in that journey yourself. You can also look around you in your family and see what your mother line looks like around you. Are there children below you? Is there a mother or a crone above you? Is there a spirit mother who sits close in your heart, guiding you still from the other side? But just becoming aware of that mother line and the essence of it running down through your family. So if you're a woman in 2026 trying to manage a career, motherhood, relationships, healing, health, and you're feeling disconnected, just know that what you're trying to do on your own without that collective sisterhood and female gathering around you is an exhausting seat to sit in. We've been taught to be solitary, to live in nuclear homes, become 18, become independent, move out of home, do everything on your own, become financially burdened and weighed down by the world around. But the truth is this: a solitary mammal in the wild is a target. A solitary female that moves in a family, that should move in a family, becomes a target in the wild. A networked female becomes a fortress. If you don't have that sisterhood around you, if you don't have that mother line, we can find the essence of this outside our generational homes. We can find the essence of that connection and sisterhood that we need away from our broken lines. Do you have that sisterhood around you, or is it time for you to start feeling some deeper connections in life, to feel less alone? So whether you come from a broken line or a healthy line, your spirit mothers are sat there, stoking the fires, keeping you warm on a cellular level, remember the essence of us began in them. So hold on to that. Your spirit mothers are there, bringing guidance and wisdom. You sometimes just need to learn how to start listening. Thank you for today. It has, as always, been a pleasure to share my mind's musings with you. Next week, we will continue delving into this motherline topic. And I think next week, we're going to be going into those transitions, those cycles, just a little bit deeper. Right. Take care. Lots of love. See you next time.